All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's session is funding your graduate education. In this session, we will discuss types of funding such as fellowships, assistantships, hourly positions, and loans. We'll also discuss what's offered at Indiana University, and we have a panel of current graduate students to discuss how they fund their education at Indiana University. We ask that if you have questions during the session to put them in the chat and we'll address them at the end of the session. So, when we think about ways to fund your graduate education, the three main categories are grants, work, and loans. Grants are free money and include external and also internal fellowships, and also scholarships that cover your tuition. We also have work opportunities that include assistantships that we call student academic appointments, and there are also hourly positions available. Lastly, student loans are an option to fund your education. We have two main types of fellowships that exist, external and internal. These awards are characterized by a yearly stipend, tuition remission or allowance, and also health insurance. When we consider federal and also industrial type fellowships, they're the best and hardest to get. They give you a lot of freedom. You're not tied down to teaching and research assistantships, and you can use them at any institution. These fellowships cover all graduate expenses. The application process is similar to your graduate school application process. Examples include the National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, and then a number of employers. When we consider additional external fellowships related to institutional commitment, these would include large faculty research grants from either the National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, or other type agencies. Grant proposals are submitted and include funding for graduate students, which include the cost of tuition and fees and a stipend within this request. Typically, this is in STEM related areas. For internal fellowships, the University Graduate School hosts a number of university-wide competitions. Students must be nominated by their department. Those selected receive tuition remission, also a stipend and health insurance. Examples include the Edwards Fellowship and also the Wells Fellowship. The University Graduate School also provides a number of awards focused on diversifying higher education. Eligibility includes being an underrepresented minority, being a person with a disability, someone that's considered a gender minority in their department, or someone that is a first generation college student. You can visit our website for additional information on these awards. Awards can range from multi-year recruitment fellowships to single year retention awards. Additionally, internal fellowships include endowed fellowships and departmental awards. These also provide tuition and a stipend. Awards can vary by your department. Examples include the Irving and Shirley Brand Graduate Fellowship, and our College of Arts and Sciences has a number of fellowships and awards as well. In addition to fellowships, a number of students have what are called student academic appointments or SAAs. The major difference between an assistantship and a fellowship is the work requirement. Research assistantships require working on a professor's research project. Teaching assistantships require teaching a course, either undergraduate or graduate course, and administrative assistantships require working on administrative projects. Assistantships typically include tuition, stipend, and also health insurance. In addition to fellowships and assistantships, we have a number of student hourly employment positions. Human resources typically posts positions that are available throughout the university. Additionally, departments have hourly positions. Lastly, student loans are an option to fund or supplement your graduate education income. A brief note about additional funding. We have a number of travel and research grants that are available to help offset the cost of graduate student conference travel and also research projects. For example, the University Graduate School has grant and aid, PhD or MFA research awards that could be up to $1,000. We encourage you to explore different options to afford your graduate education, including fellowships, assistantships, student employment, and also student loans. At this time, we have a panel of current graduate students to discuss how they fund their education. And we'll start with brief introductions, starting with Shana Lee Gallimore. I think you're muted.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shauna Lee Gallimore. I'm a fourth-year doctoral student in higher education and student affairs. I did my bachelor's and master's in biology from Florida A&M University.
Hey everyone, my name is Paul Levy. I am a second-year Master of Public Health student concentrating in environmental health. And I did my bachelor's in behavioral and community health at the University of Maryland, College Park.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Rysdale. I am a third-year PhD student here at IU in the Department of Political Science. I did my bachelor's degree at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, and I just recently completed my master's degree here at Indiana University.
Hi everyone, I'm Diane Wellington. I am a second year PhD student from, in literacy, culture, and language. I did my bachelor's at Bennett College for Women in North Carolina and North Carolina A&T. And I'm also in the inquiry department.
And I am Dr. Bianca D. Evans Donaldson. I'm Assistant Dean for Diversity and Inclusion in the University Graduate School. So for the first question, can you all just start by telling us how you currently fund your graduate education?
I can go. So since I'm a fourth-year doctoral student, for my first 2 years, I did a teaching assistantship where I taught undergrad students. And my third year, I had a graduate assistantship where I worked with the Graduate Mentoring Center. And my fourth year, I was fortunate enough to have the John H. Edwards Fellowship, but I've also supplemented my education with some small student loans and also hourly jobs throughout my time here.
I'll go. During year one, I had a fellowship, and then I also had a small loan as well as an hourly job. And now in year two, I have fellowships, loans, as well as hourly job and student appointed position where I'm teaching at the College of Arts and Sciences.
Coming in for me as a master's student, my first semester, I took out loans as well as I had a few campus hourly positions. But my second semester, my first year, I was able to secure a student academic appointment with an office on campus, the Center for Instructional Teaching and Learning. And this year, I've been able to also work at a student academic appointment in another department, the Mentoring and Services Leadership and Development Office. So I've been able to kind of cobble together different funding mechanisms through the years. But I do definitely recommend you thinking about these different options throughout your years.
So when I came to Indiana University, I was fortunate in my first year to have a fellowship as part of my PhD commitment. And what that fellowship included was it had no responsibilities for teaching or anything my first year. But then afterwards, I was required to do a student academic appointment or serve as an associate instructor for a course, which I'm currently doing. And in addition, I have had temporary positions working as a research assistant for various professors outside of my current research as well, which has been helpful in, supplementing the amount of money and getting additional research experience too.
So can you all talk a little about how funding opportunities affected your admission decision when you were deciding on which school you were going to attend? How important was funding? How did that play into your decision?
I'll go. For me, it was very important. If IU did not offer me some kind of funding, I probably wouldn't be here. Actually, I could almost guarantee I wouldn't be here. And then if I wasn't able to secure an hourly position, then I probably wouldn't be able to sustain and still be here. Um, so it was very important for me to do so.
And for me, as a doctoral student coming from out of state, definitely I needed in-state tuition. So I was fortunate enough to get a position that took care of my tuition, but also give me health insurance as well. So those were important to me. And one of the reasons why I chose IU, because that was covered.
As a master's student, for me, it was also incredibly important. I was also coming from out of state, from New Jersey. So tuition gets pretty pricey pretty quickly. But I will say that there were definitely, I could tell there would be, I think the department was pretty transparent with me in letting me know that as a master's student, it would be tough to get funding. But I was also very transparent with them to let them know this is very important to me. And in that way, I'm kind of leaning towards Lana Zimmerman's question, because she asked about when can students think about applying for assistantships. And I honestly, this is my experience in my department in public health, but I think it's okay to be transparent with their office and your department to let them know this is really important to me, especially if you kind of build up, you're going to apply, you have kind of months in advance to let them know you're a serious candidate, do your homework. Because I was able to kind of establish a relationship with my academic advisor, and she sent me opportunities. These were months in advance before I committed to Indiana. So I kind of knew, okay, I feel like I have a champion. I ended up, like I said, first semester, I took out loans. I wasn't able to secure an appointment, but the fact was I could tell that there's someone here that is going to fight for me and fight with me. And I kind of took a bit of a risk because there was no guarantee that I was going to be able to have additional funding, but I had a good experience and felt that I had someone in my corner, and it ended up working out because I had that established advocate.
For me, coming here, funding obviously was super important. One of the things that I considered in coming to the IU was the cost of living. I would recommend that it's super important that you kind of figure out how much realistically it will cost you to live wherever it is and how comfortably, however it is it might be for you. Because I was fortunate in coming here also out of state. I received out of state tuition in addition to a student stipend and health insurance. And for my program specifically in political science, I came straight out of a bachelor's degree into a PhD program. So part of our PhD program is that they pay for your master's as well, in addition to your PhD, because it's part of that 5-year process. So for me, I was able to receive my master's degree, and then I'm still on track to finish my PhD in a couple more years.
So the next question is, what advice do you have for students that are currently applying to Indiana University? If you could go back and do it again, what type of advice would you give to prospective students?
I would say that once again, this is coming from a master's perspective. Don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel. Don't be afraid to get out and reach out to professors, go on the websites, see who you might connect with, uh, think about who your advisor might be, and ask them for alum that you can get in touch with. Basically, find out and get in touch with them. And as many people as possible are willing to chat with you, so you have an idea of what sort of program it's going to look like, what challenges you might be up against. Just getting yourself prepared. I think preparation is key, and you have the resources, so don't be afraid to reach out.
I can go. Definitely start early because you just never know what will happen. And also make sure the institution is the best fit for you. It may be a number one institution, but the environment may not be an environment that will make your learning conducive. So definitely make sure it's a comfortable environment and you're willing to move if it's snowing, if it's a different type of natural disaster, that you're able to maneuver that space.
I'll add to what Shauna Lee and Paul have already said. Just make sure you do your homework and reach out to whoever you need to navigate the different spaces, whether that be financial aid, the grad school, the department you're interested in, the students in the department that you're interested in, whoever. I think all those factors are really, really instrumental in your decision, and also help you understand or see what you may be walking into, if that makes sense.
My advice would be, in addition to what has already been said, it's great advice. Definitely be flexible in all of this. I mean, granted, COVID's happening right now, and for a lot of people, that's put a damper on their progress with their degree and what their prospects look like when they are finished with their PhD. But there's definitely a lot of resources out there. And that being said, too, when you get into a program, don't be afraid to ask your department for money. I know that there's been situations with some of my colleagues where, for example, one of my colleagues' homes burnt down when he was in grad school. And the faculty members were kind enough to donate some money to him to help him get by and all of that. So don't be afraid to ask for help, because typically, at least I can speak on behalf of my department, they're all willing and they all want you to excel and succeed at the end of the day. So
So we just got a question in the chat. Can you talk a little about federal funding option, and then is this the FAFSA? Can you talk a little about the FAFSA process? It's mainly related to student loans, but can you all talk a little about that process for you?
I'll speak on it. It's a really quick process. It has been a quick process for me because I do it through the app, the Federal Student Aid app. And I will say with the loans, I've been able to adjust it accordingly. So if I've received or there's been a lag in my fellowship reaching my account or whatever other appointing funding, I've been able to adjust the loan accordingly. And then financial aid has been able to work with me in sending stuff back, sending money back if I don't need it anymore. So that's been my experience with the FAFSA and federal aid.
Yeah, I just echo Diane's comments. It's a fairly easy process. It was important for me because I needed to take out loans my first semester, and it was able to fill it out and provide me those loans. And she made a really great point that since I did get a student academic appointment in the second semester, and this year the financial aid offices worked with me to not have to take out those loans. So it's a pretty smooth process, but the school will work with you if you have questions.
Did that answer your question or do you need additional information? Awesome. So for the final question, can you all just give 1 to 2 tips of advice for prospective students? Can you talk a little about the importance of health insurance, the importance of what life is like in Bloomington or graduate student life is like, cost of living, any of those types of things, and the advice you would give when you're considering your funding options?
I can go. Definitely, once you're accepted to the program, contact them and see about the recruitment fellowships that they have and the deadline, because oftentimes, if you are accepted after the recruitment deadline for those fellowships, your name won't be submitted. So make sure that you're accepted before then. And then also, once you're here in Bloomington, there's so many different opportunities for you to excel. I would definitely say not to isolate yourself. There's different cultural centers based on your background. There's different shows for you to go and see. But I think it's important for you to also put yourself out there and enjoy the process and the time here while you're in Bloomington.
I'd add on to Shauna Lee and say definitely connect with people who have already been here. I was fortunate enough to connect with Shauna Lee before I came, and it really, really helped with the transition. Also, to think about your life prior to graduate school, and then your life, what it might look like at graduate school, and try and make those adjustments or think about what it might look like ahead of time. I think it helps with the shock when you actually start. Um,
Diane, can you talk a little about coming from a job, full-time job, to being a graduate student again?
um, so I kind of treat graduate school like a full-time job still. So I'm still working as if. So with that being said, um, I still have those full-time job bills that I had before I started. So now it's about planning about how I'm going to cover those bills and still be able to live as a graduate student, and making, um, let's say, condensing my life a little bit. So for example, coming from literally a 2,300 square feet apartment to a 630 square feet apartment. So trying to make those amends and trying to figure out how to live an okay life, a better, with new goals. I don't know that answered your question.
That's good.
Yeah, I like Diane's answers about thinking about your adjustments uh, from whatever your previous role was, whether you're coming from undergrad or I was also working full time and coming from the East Coast. I'd never been to the Midwest. So it was a bit of a shock, very different for me to have that adjustment. But then also, yeah, cost of living was decreased for me because I was living in DC. So I had that, which was kind of a nice change. But at the same time, I'm not getting paid a full-time job. So you make those adjustments. But I think it's good to know too that if you feel like you're making these sacrifices, also think about like, okay, what's my goal though? I'm here for a master's or PhD. At the end of that, I'm going to be able to do something that I wasn't able to do previously. Because it might be tough if your peers are working and they're living a different life than you are, but embrace that you're doing something a little bit different and you want to make it worth it. And there are a lot of great organizations on campus too that I was able to get involved with. I know Megan's involved with the Center for Research on Race and Ethnicity and Society, really amazing group on campus, that meeting other researchers doing work in different multidisciplinary fields that, you don't have those kinds of conversations, at least I didn't, if you're at a full-time job and everyone is kind of doing similar things. So it's nice to be in an academic environment again and think about what that means and how that can benefit you versus maybe what you were doing previously.
On that note, to what Paul said as well, I actually have 3 quick tips. One, kind of try to determine if graduate school is right for you. So, one way in doing that is to kind of, and I encourage all first year students who come into the program to do this too, kind of Google that dream job that you wish that you could have and see what those requirements are so that you can, kind of gear your graduate experience towards getting that dream job at the end, and making sure that you check off all the boxes as you're going along towards that goal. In addition, I would recommend that maybe you try and visit the university if you have the opportunity, because I know one of my friends is in a top program in his field, and he really hates it. And I think it's because he just is struggling with kind of the adaptation, and he didn't go and visit prior. So now he's kind of just stuck in the rut of it. And it's really unfortunate, but he's so close to the end that he's just sticking with it and finishing it. So definitely try to visit and talk to other graduate students like everyone has recommended so far. And in addition, health insurance is super important. That's one thing that I didn't really consider as much in the beginning, but then last year I ended up in the emergency room, and I was hit with a tremendous bill. But fortunately, I use health insurance. It's pretty great in terms of the fact that it only left me with a $150 bill at the end. So I was very grateful for that, because had I been hit with a $5,000 bill, I don't know how I would have paid for it. So definitely something to think about, because accidents can happen. So even if you're in the best of health, always try to prepare for, the unknown, so that it can leave you with more of a stress-free adventure through graduate school.
So we have an additional question in the chat that says, how do you determine how much money in loans is worth the degree? What factors informed your financial decisions?
So this is a great question. I struggled with this for many years. Honestly, from my perspective, I personally put off graduate school because I didn't want to take out loans. And I was like, oh, I'm working. I hadn't taken out loans as an undergrad. And that, in a way, stopped me from applying and going through the process. And then there was a point where I realized, if I had to take out X many dollars in loans, like, I realized that where my career was and where it was going, like, I was going to hit a wall essentially. And I thought that I had other peers who've gone for graduate school and they've had to take out loans, and it's not the end of the world. It's a very personal decision, though. I will say that, definitely say that. So I don't know that there's a perfect answer, but I had realized that it was going to be worth it for what I wanted to do. I think Megan's point was great about, like, if you have a dream job, like, look at the requirements. Think about, if you really know where you want to be, maybe there's ways that you don't have to get a graduate degree, but maybe it's important and it would be the right time. So do your homework. But I also think if you go in with that idea that I'm going to really try and find some funding opportunities, I've found here at Indiana, like I said, you have a squeaky wheel, people will work with you outside of your department, because I found my funds outside of the School of Public Health. So if if that's really important to you, because it was for me, you can make it happen. It might not be the most linear path, but that's my 2 cents.
And I can go. For me, I took out loans after looking at all my bills. Of course, I didn't take out more than I needed, but then also I didn't want to not take out loans and then ending up have to work in 3-4 jobs when I'm here for my education. So in my opinion, once you look at your different commitment financially and what you're getting from your school and the balance that's left, if you need to take out loans, and just like Diane said earlier, you can always adjust the amount of loan money that you've taken out so you don't overdo it. So that's how I went about my loans.
I'm gonna go ahead and agree with everyone else, what they said so far, and also say, I think what made it worth it, similar to what Paul said, is my career started feeling like a job and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I think at that point it was like, okay, so you need to do something about this. So yeah, we need to make some kind of change. And that change was whatever has to be done to get to the next step, if that makes sense.
So those are all really great points. You got that is all very helpful. Thank you. It's encouraging to hear all of your experiences in the chat. Do we have any other questions? No other questions? Well, our very last slide is just our contact information. So if you have additional questions, feel free to email emissary@indiana.edu. Feel free to also look at our website, graduate.indiana.edu.